Good morning. Now, warning in advance, this is super half-baked, so please stick with me, join me on the half-baked journey. Today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about a little bit recently. I've been watching this series called The Chosen, which is available on YouTube. It's an amazing series about the life of Jesus and the people he interacts with, and it kind of enables you to fall in love with him as if you were one of those people there at the time meeting him. And it's a beautiful series, so if you get a chance, take some time to watch it. But there's this beautiful scene where Jesus has sat down with these children and he's kind of teaching them and he's talking to them, and he's talking to this boy who's apparently pushed someone over and got himself into trouble, and Jesus is saying to him, well, you got yourself into trouble, no surprises there. But then the little boy says, well, teacher, doesn't the Torah tell us an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth? And Jesus' response is beautiful. He says, that's for a court of law. What does the Bible say about justice and vengeance? And then this little girl speaks up and she says, justice belongs to the Lord, vengeance belongs to the Lord. And I love this. So basically what Jesus is doing is taking this teaching, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and putting it in context with the Israelite nation being established as a nation with a kind of government and authority who are passing laws and trying to make a kind of happy, healthy, safe society. And the principle of justice, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, is meant for these kind of courts of laws to enable this society to function with a kind of legal system that protects and keeps people safe. But what Jesus is saying you shouldn't be taking that and applying it to your personal relationships and taking it on yourself to be the one to see justice. It's not about being strong and pushing people over and dominating other people. And then he goes on to illustrate, he says, consider, for example, David, who had the opportunity to kill Saul but decided not to do it. He refrained because he didn't want to take that act of justice into his own hands. He wanted to hand Saul over to God for justice. Now, I just want to share, just honestly, in my culture, in my experience, in where I'm from and how I understand the world, justice is super important. I think, although in our society, and I personally live in England, I know I've got people listening from around the world who have given me feedback at different times, but I live in England. In my society, there is a lot of injustice, but people care hugely about justice. When you talk to people, you get into personal conversations. Even when you look on Facebook, you kind of read people's posts. It's the injustice that riles people. Injustice upsets people. Injustice makes people really feel it. And I actually get that. I feel it too, and I can feel the anger and the upset when you see injustice, when you understand injustice and you see people treating other people badly. It does rile you, it makes you angry, and you kind of feel the emotions inside. So here's a question. Where is the line between kind of having a right, healthy, righteous concern for justice and tipping over into this line of basically taking vengeance into your own hands and wanting to be the one to see the justice fulfilled? Because the Bible promises us that God will bring everything to justice. He'll right every wrong. He'll make every high place low, every low place high, and bring true justice and true equality. Now, what's really cool about this is God is completely omniscient, he's completely powerful, completely benevolent and caring and loving, and values every single member of his creation. So when God brings justice into the world, we can trust that his justice is going to be absolutely perfect, it's going to be absolutely righteous. No one, at the end of God's judgment, at the end of God's act of justice, is going to be able to turn around and say, no, that was not a fair deal, that was unjust. God's justice is by definition absolutely perfect, and he will deal with everyone in an absolutely perfectly just way. So we can trust that God will bring about justice. Now, if we really believe that, and that figures in our understanding of the injustices that we see in society today, how would that affect the way we view those injustices? How would that affect the way that we pursue justice for ourselves and for other people? And is it okay to pursue justice for ourselves? Is it alright if we feel like we've been wronged or someone's treated us unjustly? Does the Bible tell us to always just let people walk over us and just kind of do what they want? And Jesus said, like, turn the other cheek. This is what I mean. This is all very half-baked. So on the one hand, Jesus says, when someone slaps you, turn the other cheek. Like, to me, that just sounds like Jesus is saying that an act of injustice, someone is assaulting you, back of the hand, slaps you around the face, just present the other cheek for them. But what's really interesting is in Jesus's own kind of crucifixion story, when Jesus is being arrested and questioned, at one point it's recorded that one of the soldiers slaps him, and Jesus challenges him. He says, "Why do you slap me? If I've spoken wrong, tell me what I've said wrong. But if I haven't said anything wrong, then why do you slap me?" So Jesus did stand up for himself in that situation. He stood up for justice. So all of this is very half-baked. I'm not saying that we shouldn't stand up for justice at all, or we shouldn't seek justice in the world at all. But I'm also not saying that we should get so caught up in a journey looking for justice and so concerned and upset about the injustices that we lose sight of the fact that ultimately justice is in God's hands. And in the meantime, justice is also in society's hands. Although there are injustices in our social systems, in our courts, in our political systems, in our social institutions, there is also justice as well. And the Bible teaches us that all authority has been put in place by God. And even when authority is wrong and they're making bad decisions and unjust decisions, the Bible tells us that those authorities have been established by God and calls us, as long as it doesn't contradict the word of God, to honour those authorities. So I feel like today I may have asked more questions than I've answered, and I think maybe where we'll end up going on this, if you go on a journey here, is that there's a balance. We need to have a view that really understands and acknowledges and lives in a reality of the fact that God is going to be the one to ultimately bring about all justice, bring about ultimate justice, to settle every injustice, to right every wrong, to make every low place high, every high place low. Ultimate justice does rest in God's hands, and God's also put authorities and courts and rulers in place to see to justice in the world for the time being. And then there's a level on which we can also challenge injustices and we can speak out against injustices. My challenge, though, is how far we go into that journey, how much we let the injustices bring us down and affect us emotionally, because that's what it can do ultimately. And this is my concern, is that when people get too focused on the injustices and fighting them and kind of taking on society and taking on the world and putting injustice right, they get pulled down emotionally. I feel like it becomes a weight that's too much for us to carry. In the case of this little boy in this series, if you imagine this was a real boy talking to Jesus, right? So he's pushed someone over because they pushed him. He's taken the justice into his hands. That's just led to his own punishment, hasn't it? That's made his own life worse as a result of it. So Jesus is basically saying, why are you surprised you're being punished? You did something wrong. So I think that's one of the levels on which taking too much of this onto ourselves can actually affect ourselves negatively. We can actually, if we go out and start fighting legally against injustices, we may end up being arrested for it. We may end up in prison, right? And that's because we've been taking something on which maybe is kind of beyond ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that God may not call us to do that. This is a really challenging thing. God might put something on your heart so much that you do need to go out and get arrested and kind of go with it. But if you're outside of God's plans when you're doing that, that's probably not a good thing. That's probably not a good place to be standing. And then you've got the side of your emotional life too, kind of walking and carrying the injustices of the world. If you do that, it's just going to weigh you down. It's too much for any one human. So those are just some initial thoughts. I would love to hear your comments. If you have any thoughts about this, do drop them in the comments below this video. It may well be that I make another video on this theme later as I've kind of processed and thought through it some more, but I just wanted to start a conversation here. So there's a train going by. We live by a train track, but God bless you guys. Please do keep joining me for these videos. Thank you if you've been joining me so far and just engaging with these videos, sharing them or commenting. It's just such an encouragement to have people kind of engaging with all these spiritual questions and these different topics that we talk about every day. God bless you, take care, and see you tomorrow.